It was cold that morning, not the kind of cold that brought snow, but the kind that made your hands sting when you forgot your gloves. The streets were damp, and the sky hung low with gray clouds. People moved fast, their jackets zipped up tight, coffee cups steaming in their hands as they rushed into the building. With the big glass doors Mercy Children's Hospital, no one stopped, no one looked around, no one had time for anything but what they came there for. But someone was already there, sitting alone near the steps. A boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old. His hoodie was too big, the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and one of his sneakers had duct tape wrapped around the sole, barely holding it together. His hands were red from the cold, but he didn't rub them. He didn't shiver. He just sat there on a piece of flattened cardboard, drawing in a small notebook that looked like it had been used 100 times over. His head was low, eyes focused on the page, but every few minutes he glanced up watching people as they passed. He didn't beg. He didn't hold out a cup. He didn't ask for anything. Most people assumed he was waiting for someone, a parent, a sibling, a ride. It wasn't the place to ask questions. Everyone had their own problems inside that building. But the boy came often, so often that the hospital guards had stopped trying to move him. He wasn't loud. He didn't get in the way. He was just there. A black SUV pulled up near the entrance, clean, shiny, engine still running. A man in a suit stepped out. His hair was gray at the sides, and he looked like he hadn't slept much. He walked quickly to the back door and opened it. Inside was a little girl, maybe 6 years old, wrapped in a blanket, sitting still in a booster seat. Her eyes didn't move. Her legs didn't either. The man lifted her gently in his arms. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. He carried her like something fragile, like she might break if the wind hit too hard. As they walked toward the hospital doors, the boy on the cardboard watched them closely, eyes following every step. And then, just as they passed, the boy stood up. "Sir," he said, his voice soft but sure. The man kept walking. The boy took a step forward. "Sir," he said again, louder this time. The man stopped and turned. His eyes were tired, annoyed. "What?" The boy looked him straight in the eye. There was no smile on his face, no trace of a joke. "I can make your daughter walk again," he said. The man froze. Jonathan Reeves had everything people think they want: money, a big house, a car that turned heads, even his own corner office with a view of the city skyline. But none of that helped him now, not when his daughter, Lily, hadn't stood up in over 7 months. One accident had taken more than her ability to walk. It had taken the light from her eyes, the sound from her laugh, the way she used to run up to him after work and jump into his arms. Now she just sat in silence, wrapped in blankets, staring out of windows or at the floor. No toys, no cartoons, just stillness. This morning was no different. He helped her into the back seat like always, carefully buckling her in, fixing the blanket over her legs, even though she couldn't feel them. She didn't speak. She hadn't said more than 5 words in 3 days. Jonathan tried not to show it, but the quiet was eating him up inside. Every time he looked at her, he felt smaller. All his meetings, all his connections, all his money, none of it could fix what had happened. He pulled up in front of the hospital like usual. The same parking spot, the same heavy breath before getting out, the same routine of lifting her gently and walking past the faces that blurred together. But today, something was different. He didn't see it right away. He didn't notice the boy with the duct tape shoes until he spoke, and when he did, the words hit like ice water. "I can make your daughter walk again." At first, Jonathan just stared. Who was this kid? Dirty jacket, tired eyes, a notebook tucked under his arm, and that voice calm, steady, like he wasn't asking, just stating a fact. Jonathan didn't answer. He turned and kept walking, clutching Lily close, but those words stayed with him, even after he reached the elevator, even while the doctors talked, even while the therapist explained the same exercises. Those words sat in the back of his mind like something waiting to be believed. And though he didn't show it, a part of him, just a tiny part, was starting to wonder if maybe that kid wasn't as crazy as he seemed. Most people who passed by the hospital never really noticed the boy. He wasn't loud. He didn't ask for anything. He just sat in the same spot each time, on a thin, beat-up piece of cardboard just outside the main doors. His hoodie was stretched at the sleeves, one shoe patched with gray duct tape. His fingers were always busy, either flipping through a small notebook or drawing in it with a pencil. Worn down to the eraser, nobody knew his name. Nobody asked. They just figured he had someone inside, like everyone else. But Zayn noticed everything, every face, every movement, every heavy step. He knew which nurses smiled out of habit, which ones meant it. He knew which parents left, crying, and which ones came out numb. He'd been watching long enough to understand what pain looked like. He didn't talk much. Most people didn't talk to him. But he saw more than anyone gave him credit for. When Zayn first started sitting there, security tried to move him, said he couldn't just hang around like that. But when they saw he wasn't bothering anyone, they let it go. And over time, even a few staff began nodding at him, handing him a granola bar or an old pair of gloves when it got really cold. He never asked for more. He never hung around long after dark. He had reasons for being there, though he didn't explain them to anyone. His mom used to bring him here when she worked at the old rehab clinic across the street. She taught him things: how to stretch a stiff leg, how to move fingers that had gone quiet, how to be patient. When she got sick, they stopped coming. When she died, he started coming alone. Zayn didn't pretend he had powers. He wasn't some kind of miracle worker, but he believed something not many people did, that the body could remember how to move, even if it forgot for a while. He saw it happen once, and that was enough. So when he looked up and saw the man in the suit holding a girl who looked completely still, something inside him stirred. That's why he stood. That's why he spoke. Because sometimes when you've seen something you can't forget, staying quiet just isn't an option anymore. Jonathan couldn't focus during Lily's appointment. He sat through the usual meetings with doctors and therapists, nodding like he always did, but the boy's voice kept playing in his head. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. Calm, serious, like he meant it, like he knew it was true. Jonathan kept telling himself it was ridiculous. A homeless kid with taped-up shoes. What could he possibly do? The teams are trained. Professionals couldn't. But even as he tried to shake it off, something about the boy wouldn't let go. His face, his stillness, the way he didn't smile, didn't joke, just believed. After hours of hearing the same phrases, "We're doing all we can. It takes time. We'll keep trying." Jonathan walked out of the hospital feeling heavier than when he walked in. He carried Lily back to the car like always, careful and quiet, trying not to show how tired he really was. And that's when he saw him again. Same spot, same cardboard, same notebook in his lap. But this time, the boy wasn't drawing. He was watching, not staring in a weird way, just waiting, like he knew Jonathan would come back. Jonathan stood still for a moment, unsure why he'd stopped. Then he stepped forward, his voice tight. "Why would you say something like that?" The boy stood up. "Because I meant it," Jonathan snapped without meaning to. "You don't know her. You don't know what we've been through." But the boy didn't flinch. He just said, "I don't have to know her to help." There was something about the way he said it that pulled Jonathan in, even as his brain kept yelling that this was nonsense. He looked at the boy's thin jacket, the hole in his shoe, the notebook he held like it was something important. Jonathan wanted to walk away. He almost did. But instead, he said something that surprised even him. "Meet us tomorrow. Harrington Park, noon. Don't be late." Then he turned and left, pretending it didn't matter. But deep down, something told him it just might. The next few days felt different. Jonathan still went to work, still answered emails, still nodded through meetings, but his mind kept drifting back to the park, back to the boy with the duct-tape shoe and the quiet voice, and back to the way Lily had answered his questions, how she'd said something felt like pressure. That single word kept echoing in his head. It wasn't just a feeling, it was a shift. A small one, yes, but a shift all the same. So when Sunday came, he didn't even question whether they were going back. He packed the blanket, filled Lily's water bottle, and headed for Harrington Park like it was something they'd always done. Zayn was already there. Same towel, same bag, but this time, he brought a second rice pack and an extra pair of socks. "Morning," he said as they arrived. Lily smiled this time. Not a big one, but it was real. That mattered. Jonathan helped her out and set her in her chair. He didn't say anything either. Not because he was being rude, but because he wasn't sure what words to use for how he felt. A mix of hope and caution stirred up like a storm just beneath the surface. This session felt smoother. Lily was more relaxed, more open. She asked Zayn if he liked cartoons, if he ever went to school, if he had friends. He answered each question calmly, honestly, said he used to go to school, but things changed when his mom got sick. Said he didn't have many friends now, but he didn't mind. I got stuff to do, he told her with a shrug. Zayn worked through the same motions, gentle stretches, warm packs, soft pressure. But then, near the end, he tapped her foot again and asked, "Can you push your heel into the ground, even? Just a little?" Lily closed her eyes, focused. A few seconds passed. "No," she whispered, then paused. "Wait, maybe." Jonathan leaned in, watching. Her toes moved, just slightly. But they moved. Zayn looked up at Jonathan. "She's trying. That's what matters." Jonathan didn't argue. He just nodded, his throat tight. He'd come expecting nothing. He was starting to feel something else now, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not confidence, not belief, but something quieter, deeper, maybe. It was trust. By the third week, things were starting to feel like a routine. Every Sunday at noon, they met under the big oak tree in the park. Zayn always showed up early, towel laid out, supplies ready. Like it was something important, and to him, it clearly was. Jonathan noticed how carefully he handled everything. Like each step mattered. Lily looked forward to it now. She didn't say it out loud, but it was clear in the way she smiled when they pulled up, or how she sat up straighter in her wheelchair when she saw Zayn waiting. This time, something had changed. Zayn didn't just guide her legs or move her toes. He started showing her how to try the movements herself. "Let's see if your foot remembers how to press down," he said, tapping her ankle. Lily focused, trying hard. Nothing big happened, but there was a flicker, a twitch, a tiny shift. Zayn nodded like it was enough. Jonathan stood close by, arms crossed, watching every moment. He wasn't as guarded anymore. He was listening. They talked more now, all three of them. Lily asked Zayn if he ever missed his mom. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Every day." Jonathan didn't speak, but he felt it. That kind of hurt doesn't need long words. Zayn talked about how his mom used to bring him to places like this, how she helped people even when they had nothing. She said everybody deserves to feel like they matter, he told Lily. After the session, as they packed up, Jonathan looked at Zayn and asked, "Why do you keep doing this?" Zayn glanced down at his hands. "Because I remember how it felt when my mom helped someone, like it meant something. I want to feel that again." Jonathan didn't respond right away. He just nodded and looked at his daughter, who was now trying to wiggle her toes again, unprompted. That night, back home, Lily told her aunt on the phone that she felt a little stronger, and Jonathan, who had spent months stuck in his own silence, realized something. Healing wasn't just happening in his daughter's body. It was starting inside his own heart too, quietly, one session at a time. The fourth Sunday didn't feel like the others. When the SUV pulled into the park, they noticed right away Lily wasn't smiling. Her face was tight, and her eyes looked puffy like she'd been crying. Jonathan stepped out slowly, his jaw clenched, his shoulders stiff. He didn't say anything as he lifted Lily from the car and placed her in her chair. She kept her arms folded and stared down at her lap. Zayn walked over, quiet as always, and asked gently, "Rough morning?" Jonathan looked away. She tried to move her legs on her own today. He said, "Nothing happened." His voice was sharp, but it wasn't anger. It was frustration, maybe fear. Lily finally spoke, and it came out cold. "I'm tired of trying. It's pointless." Her eyes didn't meet his. Zayn crouched beside her, calm but serious. "You think I never feel tired?" he asked. She didn't answer. "You think I didn't cry when my mom got sick and nobody could help us?" Her hands slowly loosened from her arms. "You think I didn't sit there, wishing someone would fix everything?" She looked at him. Finally, her voice broke. "I'm scared." Jonathan froze. It was the first time she'd said that out loud. Not in therapy, not at home, not even to him. Zayn didn't flinch. He leaned in a little closer. "I am too," he said softly, "but scared doesn't mean stop. It just means something big might be coming." There was a long silence. The wind moved the branches above them. Then Lily nodded once, slowly. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's try again." Zayn didn't smile. He just got to work. This time, there were fewer words, just careful movements. Small stretches, quiet focus. Jonathan stepped in too, more than before. He helped shift Lily's weight, repeated Zayn's instructions, stayed close, and then it happened. Lily's right foot slid forward, not a twitch, not a toe, but her whole foot. It was slow, shaky, but it moved. Jonathan dropped to his knees beside her, staring like he couldn't believe what he just saw. "Do it again," he said, and she did. Zayn didn't say much. He just sat back on his heels and watched. The moment didn't need words. It had already said everything. Something shifted after that day. It wasn't just about Lily moving her foot anymore. It was about everything around her starting to feel different. Jonathan noticed it in small things, how she hummed while brushing her teeth, how she asked to sit by the window, how she started laughing again, even if just for a few seconds at a time. Zayn noticed it too. He didn't say much, but he paid attention to every little change. The way her muscles reacted, how her eyes followed each step more closely, how she didn't hesitate when he asked if she was ready by the next Sunday. Jonathan brought a second towel and a folding chair. He didn't say it out loud, but it was clear he wasn't just observing anymore. He was in it. He helped lay out the supplies. He asked questions. He got on the ground and tried the stretches too. Even joked about how long it had been since he last touched his toes. Zayn smirked, corrected his form, and kept guiding both of them like he had been doing this his whole life. Lily was focused. She pushed harder than before, but not out of frustration, out of belief. Zayn brought out a soft belt and explained how they'd use it to help her lift both knees. Jonathan looked unsure, but Zayn gave him a quiet nod. "She's ready." They took their positions. Lily closed her eyes, brow tight with focus, and then her knees lifted, both of them, not far, maybe an inch, but they moved because she moved them. Jonathan couldn't hide it. His mouth dropped open, and for a second, he forgot to breathe. "You did that?" he asked, almost like he needed to hear her say it. Lily smiled. "I did it." Her voice was steady, proud. Zayn looked up. "The body remembers," he said quietly. "You just have to give it a chance to speak." And for the first time, Jonathan looked at Zayn not like a stranger or a miracle or even a mystery, but like someone he was starting to trust with the thing that mattered most in the world. By the next morning, something had already been decided in Jonathan's mind. Even if he hadn't said it out loud, he couldn't stop thinking about Zayn, how steady he was, how focused, how he gave more to Lily than most trained professionals ever had. And yet, every time they packed up, the boy would walk off with that same small backpack, heading who knows where. Jonathan didn't like that. Not anymore. That evening, while washing dishes, he glanced over his shoulder and asked casually, "Zayn, where do you go after this?" The boy shrugged. "Around." Jonathan wiped his hands on a towel. "You got somewhere to sleep?" Zayn hesitated. Then, without looking up, said, "Sometimes." Jonathan stood there, not moving, just thinking. Then he spoke again. "You ever think about staying with us? Just for a while?" Zayn looked up slowly. "You serious?" Jonathan nodded. "There's a guest room. You wouldn't be in the way." Zayn's face stayed still, but his fingers curled tight around the notebook in his lap. "You sure your neighbors won't mind a kid like me?" Jonathan gave a small laugh. "After what you've done for my daughter, they'd better not say a word." The next morning, Zayn showed up right on time. His shoes were the same. His jacket still to sizes too big, and he had a rolled-up blanket under one arm. Jonathan opened the door in sweatpants, holding a coffee mug. "Come on in," he said. Lily came rushing down the hall. "Zayn," she smiled, brighter than she had in months. He gave a quiet grin. "Hey, superstar." He didn't talk much that first day, just unpacked slowly and looked around the room like he wasn't sure it was real. But he didn't miss a single stretch with Lily. Not one. Every morning, they worked together on the floor in that same quiet way, focused, steady, calm, and it wasn't long before Lily was moving both feet with more control, more feeling. She wasn't walking yet, but her body was beginning to listen, and the house once filled with heavy silence was now starting to breathe again. Laughter in the hallway, light footsteps upstairs, soft scribbles from Zayn's pencil at the kitchen table. It didn't feel like a recovery center anymore. It felt like a home. It started with one nurse. She was walking her dog through the park on a quiet Sunday morning when she spotted a girl in a wheelchair. Lily, she hadn't seen her in weeks, not since the last hospital appointment. What caught her attention wasn't just Lily being there, but the way she moved. Her knees lifted, her toes wiggled, and the look on her face, it wasn't pain or effort. It was joy. The nurse didn't interrupt. She stood by the tree, holding her dog's leash, watching from a distance, and beside Lily, guiding her every motion, was that same boy who used to sit outside the hospital doors without saying much. Later that day, the nurse told her sister, who happened to work in patient services. A few phone calls were made. A few whispers passed around, and by the following week, a quiet buzz had started. One of the therapists at the hospital asked Jonathan casually, "Hey, is it true Lily's improving?" Jonathan simply nodded. "Yeah," he said, "thanks to someone we didn't expect." Word spread faster than anyone planned. The next Sunday, when Jonathan and Lily arrived at Harrington Park, they weren't alone. The other families were already waiting near the big oak tree. One had a boy using a walker, the other a girl recovering from a stroke. Their parents had heard something about a kid with a soft voice and duct-taped shoes, helping the girl move her legs again. Zayn saw them. He looked at Jonathan, unsure. He didn't say anything, but his eyes asked the question, "What do I do now?" Jonathan leaned down and said, quietly, "You don't have to." Zayn glanced at the kids, then back at Lily. She gave him a small nod. "I want to," he said. That day, Zayn gave up his usual time with Lily to help the others. He showed the parents how to warm the rice packs just right, how to stretch gently without hurting, how to watch for tiny changes most people miss, and more than anything, he talked to the kids, not over them, not at them, but to them. "You're not broken," he told one boy. "You're just learning a new way to be strong." Lily watched the whole thing from her chair, hands folded in her lap. She didn't complain once. On the way home, she told Jonathan, "I like watching him help people," and Jonathan, catching her smile in the rearview mirror, quietly agreed. So did something deep inside him. 1 week later, 5 families showed up. The week after that, it was more than 10. People brought folding chairs. Some came early just to get a spot near the oak tree. A nearby diner started sending bagels and coffee. Someone printed flyers and taped them to poles around town. Nothing fancy, just free movement classes. Sundays at noon, Harrington Park. They didn't mention Zayn's name, but everyone knew who it was for. The boy with no home, no degree, and no clinic, but who somehow made kids feel hope again. That Sunday, a reporter showed up. She had a camera, a notebook, and quiet eyes. She watched everything before approaching. Jonathan saw her first and walked over. "You okay with this?" he asked Zayn, keeping his voice low. Zayn looked around at the families, at Lily helping the younger girl practice her stretches, at the soft buzz of voices around the park. He gave a slow nod. "As long as it's not about me," he said. "It's about them." The reporter wrote her piece. It ran in the Sunday paper, tucked inside on page 2. The headline was simple: 9-year-old with a gift helps dozens heal in City Park. It didn't include his full name. Zayn asked her not to, but people started finding out anyway. A local doctor stopped by and offered to mentor him. A small nonprofit sent in a mail asking if they could donate supplies. A retired teacher called and offered free tutoring. For the first time since his mom passed, people weren't just looking at Zayn like a shadow or a stranger. They saw him, and more importantly, they respected him. Still, Zayn didn't change. He came every Sunday, still wore the same oversized jacket, still laid out the same towel on the same patch of grass, still asked Lily first how she was feeling before helping anyone else. The park, once empty and quiet, had become something new, a place where kids felt stronger, where parents didn't feel so alone, and right in the center of it all was a boy who gave without asking, who healed without headlines, and who kept showing up just like his mom taught him. It had been 9 Sundays since the first time Zayn spoke to Jonathan outside the hospital. 9 Sundays of warm rice packs, soft towels, quiet stretches, and small victories that felt bigger than anyone expected. Lily could now move both feet, lift her knees, and hold her balance for longer each time. But this Sunday felt different from the moment they left the house. The air was warmer. The sky was clear. Lily didn't talk much on the way to the park. She just stared out the window, her hands folded in her lap like she was thinking hard about something. When they pulled up, a small crowd was already there. No one loud, no music, just families, kids, and the quiet buzz of people who'd come to believe in something that didn't come from hospitals or machines. Zayn was already there, as always, towel laid out, notebook tucked away. He didn't say much when Jonathan wheeled Lily to the center of the mat. He just gave her a look. You ready? He asked. She nodded. No smile. Just focus. Jonathan moved behind her, placed his hands gently under her arms. Zayn knelt in front and guided her legs into position. Same as before, he said softly, we help you stand. You do the rest. Lily closed her eyes. Zayn counted softly. 1, 2, 3. Jonathan lifted. Zayn steadied her knees, and then she stood. Her legs shook. Her hands trembled. But she was up, on her own feet, for the first time in months. The crowd went quiet. A mother near the swings covered her mouth. A little boy clapped without even knowing why. Lily opened her eyes, wildly but smiling. I'm standing, she whispered. Zayn blinked hard. Yeah, he said. You are. Jonathan froze, hands still out just in case, but Lily stayed up. And then, just like that, she took a step, then another. And because she was young and brave and didn't know to be afraid, she took a third before falling forward into her father's arms. He caught her, laughing and crying at the same time, holding her like she was brand new. You did it, he whispered. You really did it. Lily looked at Zayn. You said I would. Zayn gave a small smile. I said we'd try. That afternoon, nobody rushed home. They stayed. They talked. Some cried. Some prayed. But Zayn, like always, just sat quietly on the bench, watching, letting the moment speak for itself. Later that night, the house was quiet. Lily had already gone to bed, tired from the day, but happier than anyone had seen her in months. Jonathan stood in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a glass of water in his hand. Across from him, Zayn was sitting at the table, slowly pouring cereal into a bowl even though it was almost midnight. Neither of them said anything at first. The silence wasn't awkward, it was comfortable. The kind that only comes when something important has already been shared without words. Jonathan finally broke the stillness. You know you changed everything today. Zayn didn't look up. He kept pouring, then set the spoon down gently. I did. Jonathan nodded. My daughter walked today. Not because of doctors, not because of some new machine, but because of a boy with a notebook and duct tape shoes who showed up again. And again, even when nobody asked him to. Zayn looked down at the spoon in his hand. That's what my mom would have done, he said quietly. She never needed much, just a reason to care. Jonathan's throat tightened, but he didn't speak right away. He walked over and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder.